This is San Diego's Fox in the Morning with Mark Bailey, Desiree Carvajal, and Christina Russo. San Diego's Fox in the Morning.
All right, over to Des now for some pretty interesting health information.
Well, low-carb diets may be all the craze, but one group of San Diegans is opting for a diet consisting only of raw food. As Fox 6's Sherry Palmieri reports, many of them think the so-called primal diet could cure them of life-threatening diseases.
I'm not really afraid of death. I'm afraid of medicine that doesn't work.
When Lisa Sabo discovered a lump on her breast 2 years ago, she decided not to head to the doctors. She changed her diet when she discovered several of her friends who did the same had beaten cancer.
I think it's man returning back to the basics.
They followed a diet consisting of almost all raw food, including vegetables, meats, and raw dairy products.
All animals who eat raw foods, their natural diets, have no disease.
Aajonus Vonderplanitz began developing the primal diet 36 years ago when he was on the verge of death. He had 4 cancers and a list of other ailments. When his doctors couldn't cure him, Vonderplanitz began to reject traditional medicine.
When I stopped eating cooked foods and started eating raw foods, especially meats and raw dairy, all of my ills, all of my cancers, my diabetes, my psoriasis, and genetic pectoris and bursitis all reversed over a period of 12 years.
He claims 95% of the people who adhere to the primal diet will reverse their disease because, he says, what he discovered is anytime you apply heat to food, it alters the chemistry.
By the time you heat any food to 127 degrees, you've neutralized the activity of all vitamins. And it just gets worse. The higher the temperature, the greater the alterations. And by the time you reach 141, 140 degrees, you start developing toxins.
Vonderplanitz says over time, those toxins create cancer.
Even though this meat is raw, Vonderplanitz says it's safe to eat.
My concern would be that people are eating a lot of raw meat and chicken and fish, and they might open up an avenue for E. coli or salmonella or listeria infection, which could be uncomfortable or deadly.
Candy Cumming, a registered dietitian, disagrees that cooking food is harmful.
And there's so many of us who are active and vital and doing well who eat some cooked things, and we're just fine and healthy and have high levels of health and live to ripe old ages.
And as for a raw food diet, preventing or reversing disease, Cumming says there are no studies in the medical community proving that.
This is some kind of fish.
Even so, these San Diegans who follow the eating plan gather every month or so to discuss the diet with its creator and sample everything from the most gourmet to the simplest of raw foods.
You've never had a raw egg before?
Probably took about a year and a half before I felt no more lumps in my breast anymore. Yeah.
And like Lisa, many of these dieters believe they have finally found the recipe for living without disease. In Carlsbad, Sherry Palmieri, Fox 6 News.
And Aajonus Vonderplanitz is with us this morning to talk a little bit more about this primal diet. Welcome to Fox in the Morning.
Thank you, Desiree.
All right, right off the bat, the first 2 things that I think most people would be concerned about are the potential for bacteria and the taste of the food. So let's start first of all with, we've always been taught that uncooked meat is not a good idea, especially uncooked chicken. I always heard cook it all the way through because you never know, you know. And when the nurse actually talked about salmonella, E. coli, listeria, and those are things that we all would be concerned with. Why aren't you concerned?
Well, there's never been any clinical test done where people ate these foods to determine whether there was a danger from those bacteria. The medical profession, because they're promoted and forced by the pharmaceutical industry to follow protocols written by the pharmaceuticals. They never want to blame the toxins in industry, in medicine, in drugs for the damage that a lot of disease comes from. So they want to always blame something natural, like bacteria. We've been eating bacteria for millions of years. All of a sudden, in the last 100 years, it's become more convenient to cook. and to isolate and blame bacteria, but you have to understand there wasn't that many diseases. The diseases that are flourishing now are much greater than they were. And in the tribes who eat raw meat and raw dairy as their single diet have no degenerative disease whatsoever.
All right, so obviously that's obviously a personal choice that people have to make, whether they want to do it or not. But I also want to talk a little bit about your story, because you, excuse me, you yourself started doing this for a reason.
Correct.
Tell us about it.
Well, when I reached 19 years old, I had already been diagnosed with diabetes, juvenile diabetes, and I was on insulin. I had started angina pectoris at 15 and a half, and both of those started after vaccines. The polio vaccine. Then, and there's thimerosal, which is liquid mercury, and ethyl mercury.
What
and there's
did you do?
aluminum, and it caused trouble. Well, I went for the treatment of ulcers, and that turned the ulcer into a tumor. Then the treatment for the tumor caused severe metastasis.
Okay.
Then the treatment for that gave me blood and bone cancer. Then the treatment for that gave me leukemia.
I have to get you going though, because we're out of time. But just tell us what you decided to do the raw diet and what changed for you.
Well, somebody introduced me to eating raw foods. It made me feel better right away. So then I began researching raw foods and experimenting with them. And there's probably been 6,000 people who've eaten the raw meat with no worse effects than any other. Most of your bacterial food poisoning comes from cooked foods.
Okay, well, there are obviously a lot of people that follow this primal diet, and if folks want to get more information on it, they can go to fox6.com, and we will hook you up with more research that Aajonus Vonderplanitz has done, a couple of books and all that. We'll hook you up. We'll give you more information. And very quickly, you say the taste is better on raw foods, right?
Well, only because you haven't flattened the enzymes and vitamins. Everything is more robust.
Okay.
You know, when you cook a grain, it goes flat, so you have to season it. But on the raw foods, everything is very vibrant.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you coming in this morning, and we will pass on all the information that we have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, rain is keeping the roadways wet and slick. Still ahead on Fox in the Morning. Chrissy has the best routes for your morning commute, and Fred Saxon is here.